Oh, hello, gorgeous, powerful, everyday women of the world. Welcome to the Startup Stories podcast, where the ambitious, everyday woman is heard, held, and served as a holistic, full human female in her life and her business. Because Candice Neveu and I were just talking about this. So I'm just going to mix it into the fold with the intro that the movement of the world right now, as far as Candice and I see it, and we'll talk about it and unpack it, is really scaling out to the full capacity, the full broadness of who we are. So, as you know, if you've been listening, if not, welcome to my space and my heart. I'm your host, Mia Frankel. I am the founder, the coach behind Powerful Inc., the everyday women's coach for living a peaceful and productive life. And on this podcast, I'm bringing you stories with gorgeous guests, and every once in a while, a rant or ramble from myself to keep you sane, grounded, and growing as you connect with yourself in your day to day while reaching for more. And today, this is very exciting for me. It's always very exciting when I have a guest, and I'm always very excited about all of them. But Candice Neveu actually lives so-called down the street from me. And so it's even more exciting because one day, ironically, we haven't got together in real life yet, but we will. This year, we'll make a deadline before the end of June. It's mid-March right now. And Candice fell into my world through, I don't know, I'm always pulling people in, right? And she's been in my collateral or like outer circle space for a while. And then I finally just tugged on that cord and pulled her in. And it's just so beautiful to get to know you on a deeper level, Candice, and unpack your story and appreciate the work that you're doing in the world, particularly being a product of it yourself. And so to the listeners, you're here because you're yearning for more. Among all of the if you want the muck and mire of our day to day. And this is really who I stand for, and this is who Candice helps return to themselves when we kind of create an identity out of alignment and more because of survival, because the world is pressuring us, because we're holding a lot of roles, because we have, I love these words of Candice's, domestic labor weight pulling on us, right? And I'll define it briefly, but like if you think about being the matriarch of a home, you're carrying the children, the groceries, the maintenance, the repair guy, the summer camps, the school schedules, like yourself, your relationship, extended family. Like I am very involved in maintaining the relationship with my mother-in-law, Girl Guides, etc. So there's all these things, and we can kind of get compartmentalized or fragmented in all of those things. And Candice was just telling me in the preamble, which I am going to pull out, you guys, because it was so beautiful, that the journey from 40 to, is it okay if I timestamp your age?
Yeah.
40 to 50 was like the ultimate suffering and exquisite growth portal to the gorgeous being that she is now, and all the more the better coach that she is as a result of her lived experience. So I'll let her unpack her story, but I'll bookend it with turning 40, losing her mom to breast cancer, and then coming out at the end of a decade with a divorce and everything that happened in there that birthed this new, truer, stronger version, and helps her now work with students in career development and preparing for their future with all of this life wisdom, to give them a more empowered platform foundation, and working with high achieving powerhouse women who kind of end up burnt out or painted into a corner or like overwhelmed and oh my god, I can't keep going like this, like they run out of steam. And so this is going to be a large part of the conversation, redefining success, really getting to know what capacity is and understanding what the world is set up for as a broken system that we're trying to operate in, and instead we're going to pull through and create change, and change the future, take over the world.
Hallelujah.
anything else. Add, edit, delete, take it away, because now I give the stage to you. Welcome to converse with me, and yeah, take us through kind of your story as you want, and we'll run from there.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mia, for that great introduction. Yeah, I think I love how you described my last decade as a growth portal. Not
Right?
what I would have called it a few times during the way, but a lot more colorful language than that. But it actually really, really was. And it's an interesting place. So it started in 2016, but from my business perspective, I actually started my business in 2014
Mhm.
because I was working in post-secondary, and I would live. I don't know if a lot of people don't realize this, but a lot of work in post-secondary is quite precarious. And I had learned through, the hard way a little bit that I didn't want all my eggs in that basket. And so I
Uh-huh.
decided to start an editing and writing business in 2014. And it has morphed since then.
Yeah.
But just after that, my mom's cancer, she has a breast cancer diagnosis, it unfortunately returned. And so for the next couple of years, we were supporting her. And in 2016, she passed away I think she was 61, I want to say.
Mhm.
So she was pretty young.
Yeah.
And that was the same year I turned 40.
Yeah.
And it was sort of the crucible, right? My job,
Yeah.
I had a crisis. I almost quit it.
Mhm.
But I kept at it because it didn't seem the responsible thing to do in that moment. Burning
Fair.
everything down might not have been the best idea.
Fair. Yeah.
Uh, but I did make changes. I think I don't know if your listeners will resonate, but I tried everything to make my career work because I went back
Mhm.
to teach at university, and that was my dream that, 10 years previous to that.
Mhm.
I was going to do this. Um, and so I did
Mhm.
everything I possibly could to make that work. I
Yeah.
tried a different department. I tried teaching a different class. I
Yeah.
tried applying for a different position. I tried reframing my mind. I
Right.
tried, you know,
Square peg, round hole, though, right?
diversifying.
Like,
Oh, all the things.
yeah, right.
Uh, but it became really evident that it was really just out of alignment. And
Hmm.
so my business became the place where I could exert control. I could say yes to the clients and I could
Yeah,
get cool work. And
yeah.
I expanded into more academic coaching as opposed to writing and editing support.
Hmm.
And all the while this was happening, I started branching into academic coaching in 2018. After my mom passed away, I was the caregiver for my stepdad,
Right.
on top of who had chronic health illness
Yeah,
as well, on top of caring for my young children.
yeah,
She was 6 and 10, I think they were at that time.
yeah.
And my husband was going through some work transition of his own. And so there was a lot going on. And
Yeah.
I remember I had a coach at the time, my first coach, and I think it was our first session. And we were talking about grief, and she said, what if you just like let yourself grieve? And I said, well, everything would fall apart.
Right,
And she said, okay. And like, what if everything fell apart?
right.
And I remember just being like, what kind of question is that?
Yeah,
Like, I
yeah,
can't let things fall apart. What are you
yeah,
talking? No, because the
yeah.
whole world would crash down.
Yeah.
And it was an incomprehensible idea at the time,
Right.
but it was actually the exact right question. I just didn't know it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, by 2018, that was sort of a turning point for me. I, despite all the attempts to change everything,
Hmm.
uh, my job was really just not doing it for me. And I knew that I needed a plan to exit. So I decided to give more space to my job, or to my business, I'm
Business.
sorry,
Yeah,
and to pursue coaching as
yeah.
an additional. It would augment my teaching, and maybe it would do something else. But it was still really scary. I didn't know if I would be able to make the leap because, things. become familiar. It's what's known. And also there's that added, I worked at university, and
Right.
there's that ego element.
Identity, ego, yeah.
Yeah,
And like
that identity.
perspective of who you are, what you are. Yeah.
And like when people think about, oh, you have a good job, it's like they don't know what it's like inside the academy. It's a different place. But from the outside, yeah, I could see that. So I was really dancing with, am I like, am I doing something completely irrational here? Am I going to throw everything out, right?
Yeah.
But all I knew was that I was really unhappy. I was really unfulfilled. I was burning the wick at both ends.
Yeah.
I was caregiving to the nth degree. And really, in hindsight, no one was caring for me. The person who would
Oh,
have probably cared for me had passed away,
yeah.
and everyone else was in their own world
Yeah.
and
Of
navigating their
course.
own things.
Well, you were the glue behind the
Yeah.
scenes, like you were the stage. And I want to sit in a minute for that beautiful question that that coach asked you. What if it all fell apart?
Hmm.
Because there's so many layers to this. And one is in grief. It's not fair to expect oneself to continue to perform as they always have.
Hmm.
Grief is sacred and deserves honoring. And that
Hmm.
means shifting gears to allow it to take the stage. And there's
Yes.
so many times where we are still trying to prove or be or hold together. And it's, yes, out of alignment with us, but it also is like a false identity, a false reality of what's going on. And so permission to let things fall apart is not really, it's a shift into, as Candice said to me, because I'm all squirrely today, although I'm feeling much more calm now. What's the one next thing? Or what's
Hmm.
the one most thing for today? And, you know, we're trying to hold all these things at once, like what you're describing at that time. And um, we're not always ready to hear that, but I want to kind of push it into the listeners a little today because I like in my day-to-day life, I'm still unpacking that. We're going away tomorrow. This episode will probably air after I get back, fine, but we're going away. I'm working an extra day. So the schedule is tight, the turnaround times are tight, and I'm feeling like, but what if I don't finish vacuuming? What if you know the bird cage doesn't get cleaned?
Exactly.
What if the laundry gets left in the dryer? I didn't leave the house on fire. I didn't leave the stove on. I didn't leave the back door open. I didn't, you know, leave
Yep.
the car running and head out of town. So this allowance of relaxing into all that we're
Hmm.
holding instead of breaking ourselves from
Hmm.
continuing to hold
Hmm.
it is a huge shift and you're going to continue to take us through that because the other point I grabbed is that you knew you needed to change, right?
Hmm.
And that
Hmm.
circumstances were okay, but you kind of had to figure out who you were going to be in those circumstances and start making those shifts. And so you did. You had to, that's why I teased you. It's like growth portal of angst and exquisiteness. I like to say awesome and awful. That's my duality. It's awesome and awful, or it's awful and awesome. AA. But you know, sometimes we need that. We need that breaking in order to let the light come through. So
Yeah,
keep
no,
us.
you absolutely are right. Just a little bit of a moment on the grief because I think that's a really, I mean, um, it was probably one of the best schools I attended, really, to kind of
Mm,
frame it that way. Like as I was entering my 30s, just a little bit before my 30s, I lost my dad. So that was my first experience of
yeah,
grief. And it was different. I was much
sure.
younger
Yeah,
and I didn't have a lot of things and
yeah. Like the
trappings and
kids weren't
responsibilities
there.
like I
The
did
yeah,
now. Yeah.
yeah.
And it was a different experience. His death was unexpected, and my mom's
Mm,
was, we
yeah,
knew it was coming.
yeah,
And having been through both experiences, there's pros and cons, if you want to say that, to
sure.
both experiences, and it's a
Yeah.
different navigation through both. But you mentioned capacity before, and I think if one is navigating grief, and I want to be really expansive here with the term grief because all endings,
Yeah.
regardless of whether they are literal death,
Yeah.
come with grief.
Yeah.
And I think that we underestimate, we don't give space for the feelings of grief that we can experience when things end.
Yeah.
So, or when things change. Like if, for example, going from single to motherhood
Yep.
is also involves a period of grief,
Yep.
right? Having your kids grow up involves a
Yes.
period of grief.
Yes.
Parents dying, of course,
Yes.
grief.
Yes.
Changing jobs, ending marriages,
Yes.
shifting who you are, all involve
Yes.
grief.
Yes.
And so, and the number one thing with grief is it shrinks your capacity
Right.
hugely
Right.
because it is a big and it's a heavy and it's
Mhm.
a encompassing emotion. It's not something to be afraid of, but it
Mhm.
does it takes up more space.
Yep.
And it can be quiet and you may not notice it. And then you could be, driving along and all of a sudden you burst into tears because you
Yeah.
saw a bird out the window that reminded you of something. And so this period of, navigating grief and letting it flow and giving myself permission, like I had to learn to give myself permission to receive help,
Yeah.
to ask for help,
Yeah.
to be okay with crying in weird places.
Yeah.
It normally didn't last long. It disappeared pretty quick.
Yeah.
Happily, most often in my car, so I didn't have to worry about,
Being embarrassed.
there were the odd moment. There were the odd moment.
Sure.
But it was also the thing that broke me open,
Yeah.
that made me realize I can't do all the things. And when you lose a parent and when you lose, like my mother and I were very close, but she also, like, it caused me anyway to reevaluate how do I, life is short.
Hmm.
How do I,
Hmm.
is this how I want it to be? Is this how I
Hmm.
want it to live, to show up? Is
Yeah.
this what I want to model for my kids? What
Yeah.
is happening, right? So all of these questions were coming up as I was navigating, and I decided, no, something needs to change. And I had this whole plan I was going to,
Oh,
you know,
a plan. I love a
2022.
plan.
Yeah. Well, it was a vague plan, but it was like, okay, I'm gonna put all this more energy into my business
Yeah.
to see, like, this is it, make or break. It's either gonna work or it's not gonna work. And it was I was entered coach training in 2019. I was my academic coaching business was growing. I was getting lots of referrals, and I reached a point in like late 2019, early 2020, where it was either I have to choose one because I can't be in both.
Hmm.
I just can't. But
Hmm.
I was terrified. And I remember it was January 2020, and I was out at Whiff and Spit out here where I live. It's by the ocean.
Yeah.
And I was in tears staring out at the ocean because I felt trapped. I hated, it was a new semester, and I hated going to school. Not because
Right.
the students were bad, they were lovely,
No. Yeah.
but I just hated it. And I thought, but my plan was like 2 years from now.
Right.
And I really had to just be like, no,
Hmm.
this is I can't do this anymore. This is
Yeah.
the last semester. It's
This is
either I could sink or swim. And I always joke about how I manifested the pandemic.
Because it ended up with you like getting fired or something.
No, no, actually, so after leaving the beach, I sat with it because I
Yeah.
learned that instead of making a rash decision, I sit with things a little bit longer.
Hmm.
I sat with it to just check, is it true or am I just making it out
Yeah.
of like emotion, but is it
Yeah.
settling in my body? Does it
Yeah.
feel true? And I did, and then I held on to it to a little bit, and then I told my husband and said, "Hey, I'm going to do this thing. I'm making enough money to replace my income,
Hmm.
you know." And then I told the university, and the
Hmm.
amount of joy that I felt was indescribable. Me and another woman, she was retiring, and we would just pass each other in the halls and start like giggling at each other.
Yeah.
Like it was so
Right.
fun.
Yeah.
And I knew I'd made the right choice. And then
Mm.
COVID hit.
And then
And
COVID hit.
wow, did business take off
Okay.
because I'm an online I taught online, I can
Yeah.
teach online. So I was
Yeah.
teaching online. Students were going back to school like nobody's business. I had more
Mhm.
than enough business that I knew what to do with. So I was really busy and really successful for the
Yeah.
first while, run off my feet, and it was great. And it enabled me to pretend that, it
Mhm.
could distract me from the fact that my marriage was falling apart.
Yeah.
And I did manage to convince my stepdad to go into assisted living,
Mhm.
right, literally 2 weeks before the pandemic hit.
Wow. Wow.
Um, Beautiful timing. And
Wow.
he thrived there until
Wow.
he passed away in 2021.
Mm.
So grief again.
Yeah.
And, but it became fairly, it was in being my own boss full time.
Hmm.
I got a lot of space to explore and I got to be, set my own hours and I got to decide to help my kids out and, all of these things. But it was also it was the next school of
Right.
self-doubt like you wouldn't believe,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because I was a coach and an instructor and I was not a business person. I didn't know what the hell to do with business. And so as a good student, I took all the courses
Oh
and did all
God.
the things
Yeah.
and sucked up all the stuff.
Right.
And part of that was a way to stop me from moving forward and trying things
Yeah.
because it was much safer for me to
Hmm.
spend time learning than it was to spend time doing.
Hmm.
And part of it was just to feel like I knew what I was doing because I honestly just felt like a fish out of water. And it was what took a while for me to remember that even when I started teaching, I felt the same way. And so I started to learn, oh,
Right.
I'm just in what I now call the doubt landscape. Like
Ah.
this is just
Yeah.
normal.
Yeah.
Whenever you start something new, you
Yeah.
feel crazy and like you
Yeah.
don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so I started paying attention to, okay, how do I navigate this? And it was really uncomfortable, to be
Hmm.
honest. But I did learn a lot, and those learnings informed my business quite a bit and the way that I worked with people. And in 2023, I invited in an opportunity to do a TEDx,
Yeah.
which was fabulous and the biggest dance with imposter syndrome I have ever
Yeah.
had, which I was cockily thinking, oh, I got this. It's no problem.
Uh-huh.
So wrong. The universe schooled me on that one. Um, it was really a really big dance with self-doubt because as I was feeling nervous, which again was normal,
Yeah.
the talk was essentially, it didn't call it this, but it was basically about imposter syndrome when you return to school and you think you can't do a thing because you're not good enough and do you even deserve to be there? And it was about how you could, um, build confidence and self-trust and that kind of thing. And here I was giving a talk on something I was literally dancing with in that moment. And my
Yeah.
brain kept telling me, who are you to talk about this?
Right.
And, but it was also very much, that made me the perfect person to talk about.
Well, because
It
you're
was like,
living through it. So
yes.
there's
Yeah. And applying what I was actually talking about to myself in that moment and did
yeah.
have the support of a really great, my coach for TEDx was really great in that way. But it led to a year of a lot of introspection because while the talk did really well, it was featured on TED or on YouTube and then TED.com featured it later in the year. It um, it made me come face to face with visibility,
Right.
and that's a really big thing for a lot of women.
Yeah.
People generally don't, but women especially, I find being visible
Hmm.
and wondering if I'm good enough
Hmm.
to be there and to be on stages like that and to have that attention and that light shining on me. And so, but it was also really useful because in plumbing those depths, so to speak,
Yeah.
I was able to reconnect with my own my own self-worth and my own value in new ways like I had
Yeah.
not really thought about before, and started to see how regulating your nervous system plays in so much to managing capacity, to managing time, to navigating the doubt landscape, because we're taught that, or we pick up from our culture that, we just have to do, we
Yeah.
do. And and as a high achieving woman, I was a doer,
Yeah.
like extraordinaire. And I think that question from my coach was exactly challenging because it told me to be. It said stop. It said be still, let everything fall,
Hmm.
right? Like, no big deal. You don't have to be the glue. You don't have to be the doer.
Yeah.
And it was so incomprehensible to me, but it became very evident by, a couple of years ago that that's exactly the lesson I needed to learn was no, you do actually have to be. You
Yeah.
have to connect with who you are
Yeah.
and your own wisdom and your own values and why you do what you do and who you do it for and your bigger role here and all of these things, um, because doing for the sake of doing
Yeah.
is over functioning. It's
Yes.
not serving you. It's
Yeah.
not, helping
Yeah.
anything really. It's just going to burn you out at the end. And I had to start practicing, because there's that tired metaphor we hear. And I say tired, it's really powerful, but it's overused. Is that, put that oxygen mask on yourself before helping
Yeah.
someone else. And, it's a great metaphor. It's just overused.
Yeah.
But it is very true in that because I always thought, well, I'm a helper. I want to help.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I realized that if I am not caring for myself, I cannot help.
Yeah.
So self-care becomes service,
Yeah.
which enabled me to do it because if I could know, okay, if I get good sleep, then I won't rip my kids' heads off and I'll be able to help them better. Or,
Well, they still
if
might, but you'll
well,
be nicer about
but
it.
yeah. Or, like if I do for people,
Yeah.
I take away their ability to have that self-confidence to do it
This is
themselves,
it.
to prove to themselves they can
This
do a
is it.
thing, to
Yeah.
so that was part of it. And being able to say, you know, why am I doing these things? And as I'm navigating this space and I'm like cooking dinner every night of the week to two teenagers who are sort of like, I am not hungry,
Hmm.
or I don't like that,
Hmm.
or my ex-husband, he ate whatever was in front of him. I will give him that.
Great.
But it became like
Yeah.
I'm spending
Yeah.
often going right from my desk to the
Yeah.
kitchen,
Uh-huh.
and then not a lot of help. And I thought, in order for me to love you guys the way that I believe you deserve, I am going to cook Sunday nights because I like Sunday dinner. So Sunday
Yeah.
nights and Wednesdays.
Yeah.
So Sunday nights equals Monday leftovers.
Yeah.
Tuesday they'll figure it out.
Sure.
Wednesday equals Thursday leftovers. Fridays
Hmm.
are always
Yeah.
whatever, and weekends or whatever.
Yeah.
So I said Sundays and Wednesdays. And I let them know and I held to that.
Yeah.
And you know what? Nobody starved.
Right.
Nobody died.
And
They didn't all learn to
you,
cook either, but I
yeah,
felt better.
but you felt
You
better.
know, I felt better. And I felt less pressured,
Pressure.
and I was less resentful.
Yeah. Thank
So, I
you.
mean, that's just an example of a boundary I set up too, but it was honoring my capacity because going to the edge of it, all it did was make me more resentful. And
And
I
you have
could,
to own that as
mhm,
the woman creating it. And I relate to this so much because I have been living in a belief that if it's to be, it's up to me in the house.
mhm,
And trying to prove myself by being a good little maid, essentially, to gain value. and sense of worth. And what it does instead is creates a bit of a unhealthy, codependent, out of balance environment where people are
Mhm.
always coming to clutch to you, and you're barely staying afloat. So if we picture the end of the movie Titanic, right? Like there's only room for one on there, and maybe you can take turns, but you can't all be on there at the same time. And we are the thing that is holding the other people up. We're the door
Mhm.
that Rose is on in this case. And it didn't in small shifts in my household in this present time of my expansion as a woman, um, things are moving along. Like when my husband grocery shops, he does a great enough job, and again, we're not going hungry. He spends less money at the grocery store than I do, which is also good. Especially we live in the same place. Groceries are crazy right now. And we have a I have a stepdaughter, so she's back and forth, but that helped create kind of like a division of labor that wouldn't necessarily exist otherwise. And it's been so spacious for me to let go of those things, or like you said, to very clearly set new parameters in place, boundaries in place for other people to adjust to, that are still loving, that are still reasonable, and that still allow you to be true to who you are, a good, loving, caring woman in the house, feeding people that you love, just not in a martyr kind of way, more in
Yeah.
a more realistic, a more adapted to the world, the environment that you're in. Like the kids come and go, whatever, you don't know when they're going to be home. So, what are you trying to do with the family meal every night?
Mhm.
Um, and the big piece of this that I heard coming out from you making the transition of leaving your job, I just want to go back so the listeners capture that Candice had a plan, was 2 years away, but the timing and the discord came sooner, and you had to trust yourself then to move.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
it worked out. And in that, you started practicing what I think is what you felt on the TED stage was the facing of yourself over and over. And
Over and
so
over and over and over
and
and
over
over and
it
over and over
until
and over.
until we die. Like this is the thing. Coaching's like, oh, you'll get there, and then ta-da! No, dude,
No,
it's not a destination. It's
no,
an
it really
endless
isn't.
journey.
Yeah. And I will say, like, the day that I made the decision, so the day I was facing the decision,
Yeah.
I knew I've been dancing around it for a long time. And I always, and even in my own writing, I've used that image of like being on the edge of a really high diving board and your
Yeah.
toes are gripping the edge and
Yeah.
your friends are in the pool and they're looking back at you and they're like, it's great, just
Right.
jump. And you're like, oh my, I'm gonna die. And so,
Yeah.
but you eventually, you either have to go back down the ladder
Yeah.
or you jump.
Yeah.
And I had probably gone down the ladder a few times already. So at
Thank
this
you.
point, I'm at the
Yeah.
board and I know where the
Yeah.
ladder goes.
Yeah.
That's not my pathway. I just got to do it. And
Yeah.
the most and I don't want to downplay this for folks. It's freaking scary.
Yeah.
It feels like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But but if you've tried it all the other ways and that
Hmm.
hasn't worked, then the only way forward is through.
Yeah.
And it's scary until you make the decision.
Hmm.
And then once you make the decision, you're in the air now.
That's it.
Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Surrender.
and really honestly, the worst thing that will happen, because your brain is going to tell you it's existential, you're going to die, and that's
Yes.
the end of it. But
Yes.
that's because you're doing something unfamiliar and you're doing something stretchy, and that's your brain's programming. It's supposed to do that. I said to a
Yes.
client this morning, it's like we are working in a modern time with outdated hardware
Yeah.
because our brains evolved from an earlier time when things were simpler.
But I'll interject briefly. I love this analogy, but I hear the lizard brain, the primal brain a lot. But then hunters still went out and faced wildebeests, and they still
They did.
charged, right? So this is where the primal, and it's I'm just playing here,
Mhm.
spitballing off the top of my head, but playing with we experiment with what's possible, we push boundaries, and we now have more opportunity than ever. But
Hmm.
we've also kind of been coddled by structured
Yeah.
systems, right? And it's less about survival and more about kind of freedom, choice, fulfillment, sort of almost luxury.
Well, yes and no. I think one of the things that our ancient ancestors had on us was community.
Yeah,
And I think that in North America, I mean, I can only speak from a North American experience,
yeah,
um, we have become so individualistic and
yes,
so
yes,
me-centered.
yes,
And if they did not hunt alone, they went
yeah,
out in community.
yeah,
And if you were threatened by, like if you weren't hunting and you were threatened by the wildebeest, you came back and the community welcomed you
yeah,
back, like with,
right,
oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're okay, and hugs and
yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
The thing that's so scary for us when we're about to jump into the pool is we don't know what will happen. So it's fear of the unknown, which
hmm
is super scary for our brains, right?
yeah,
And we think we're alone.
yeah,
And I think that, for so many women and people generally, we have this story in our life that being vulnerable and I think women, if you can find the right people, we do this so much better.
yeah,
But oftentimes we are afraid to speak our truth.
yeah,
We might whisper it to ourselves, but we're afraid to tell people
hmm
because they might say, well, you have a good job. Why would you do that?
yeah,
I heard that. Why
yeah,
would you
yeah,
you have a job at the university. Why would you go
yeah,
do this?
yeah,
Or like, are you sure it's not a good time? Or like all
yeah,
of these their own fears coming
hmm
forward.
that's right.
So when I say the community, it's the right people who can hold your dreams and go, cool, right? Let's
Yeah,
find those women. Let's find them and they may not be, you only need one or two. You don't need a
yeah,
whole whack of them.
right,
But if you've got one like that in your life, hug her close because
yeah,
that's the kind of woman that you want, right?
hmm
And when you jump and you're in the water, it usually is fine. Because the worst thing that really honestly does happen is, oh, it didn't work.
belly
But
flop,
often that didn't involve
ow,
like a crisis,
like,
right? Like the
yeah,
world isn't going to stop
yeah,
spinning because all it is you now have data
yeah,
to make a different choice.
yeah,
And I say that as having walked this road enough times to
hmm
know that, but in the moment, it certainly didn't feel that way.
of course,
And, um, I think that's the thing that why I do the work that I do now, especially because it dawned on me a little while ago as I was reflecting on my whole experience is that you can learn. When we're in school, we know about learning and we know sometimes you're not going to get good grades and like all of these kinds of things happen.
Mm,
And then once we get out of that sort of formalized space, we forget that growth still happens,
that's
change
right,
still happens,
that's
and
right,
we don't always make the connection that it's still learning. And so
hmm
we can learn to navigate that doubt, to transform that doubt. And really, what we're aiming for isn't to please other people, it's to put our
hmm
mask on first. It's
yeah,
to trust ourselves, to look inward first.
yeah,
Because all that stuff that I did, I I mean, I was an extreme example in some ways because like I said, I was the glue.
hmm
I did have some really good friends, but I really had to lean into my own wisdom
yeah,
because, my marriage wasn't a place I could bring it. My mother was passed
yeah,
away. My
yeah,
stepdad passed away.
yeah,
My best friends were holding my marriage at the time. Like, so,
mm,
like there were,
yeah, yeah,
I had to turn inward
yeah,
and ask myself what that was. And so you were saying a few things about proving I have to prove my worth. And I think a lot of my work with women and myself had to start with who am I?
hmm
Who am I outside
hmm
of my roles?
yes,
And why do I think I need to prove anything? Because
yeah,
proving implies that you are not good enough.
hmm
And that's just crap.
yeah,
But it is an incomprehensible thing when you have when you believe at some level
Yeah.
and you have internalized stories from culture and family and places that, yeah, you are lacking in some way. And so being able to say, who am I really? And who am I without
Hmm.
the job, the business,
Hmm.
the marriage,
That's
the,
right.
you know, even
Especially.
being a mother, like being
Yes,
all these, being,
absolutely.
because you get back to, you know, the traits that make you you.
Yeah.
You are not the roles you play,
Yeah.
right? Those are just modes of expression.
This is like the my most favorite thing ever. I want to put it on all the t-shirts. You're not the roles that you play. You're the
Hmm.
whole woman. The
Yes,
whole
yeah.
woman. And that is truth. That is identity.
Yes. And
And
you matter. You matter. I
yeah,
think that's the thing is that we spend so much time as women taking care of everyone else,
yeah,
and we are the only person who will take care of us. But we turn it out like none of those folks will care for us the way we can care for us. Like we're our first line. And we might want them to, but it really does start with us. And if we don't care for ourselves, we can't show up. We're pouring from an empty glass
yeah.
or a half empty glass. And I know that's a bit of a tired analogy too, but it is true, right?
Well, I'll
And
compliment that one and the air mask one with no person is an island, right?
yes, unto themselves, 100%.
Onto
Yeah.
themselves. And that is where the sisterhood shines in stewarding each other and taking turns. There is a beautiful bit of poetry, if you will, around the sisterhood in elephants and taking
Hmm.
turns to care for each other at various stages of life's seasons. And this is where having that close circle around you helps hold. You give and you receive, and you
Hmm.
share the load
Hmm.
while stewarding yourself
Hmm.
fully and fulfilled, without those leaks. And this beautiful conversation that we're having, Candice, really captures the essence, of where I wanted us to go with managing capacity over seasons of life, and like understanding in a very tangible, practical way what capacity is. This is what I hear you talking about in the self care, not in the trite, go get a manicure, blah, blah, blah. This is soul filling
Hmm.
of again, like the deeper identity of who you are outside your roles, and knowing what you need to stay in vitality, really.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes it's just keeping your head above water.
Yeah.
But I think that capacity is something that is not fixed. And I know
Yes.
that for the longest time, I was sort of like, I'm going to do a thing and it's going to stay that way. And I have since
Yeah.
realized,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Like there are cycles, right? There's
Yeah.
cycles to the season of grief, the season of young children, the season of teenagers, the
Yeah.
season of marriage dissolution, the season of high tempo work, the season of low tempo work, the season of illness, the season, there's seasons to things. And if you think about, uh, if you're feeling pulled right now or stretched, reminding yourself that that proverb of like, this too shall pass. It
Hmm.
will, because that's
Hmm.
one guarantee. Nothing stays
Hmm.
the same, for
Hmm.
better or worse.
Yeah.
But nothing stays the same. So even in the middle of it, this too shall pass. And giving yourself permission that in the season, you may not be able to do all
Yeah.
the things.
That's right.
And here's where that capacity and identity bump into each other because,
Hmm.
if
Yeah.
you don't have capacity for
Yeah.
something and then you go, I have to say no to that,
Yeah.
who am I if I'm not the
Yeah.
consummate pack volunteer,
That's
right?
right. Yes.
Like you are a more peaceful woman, girlfriend. That's who you are.
Boy in the
But but like that's it bumps into it. Those
yes.
two things bump into each other.
Yes.
And you really have to think about your bigger values. Like, well, why am I saying no? Is
Yeah.
because I can't spend any time with my kids. And if I say no to this, we can watch a movie in the night. Does that matter more than showing up with the cupcakes? Yes, then okay, that's the choice. They don't have to be easy choices, and it doesn't mean that that choice has to be the way it is forever. But for right now, that's the capacity I have. And that's a lovely way of saying no to people. Instead of saying no, you can say, thanks, I don't have capacity for that right now.
Mhm.
Right? It's not
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. Well, it's grace because you're speaking to the choir, and I'm really,
Mhm.
that's a very real example. So, listeners, I am the contact guider for my child's Girl Guide unit. I joined us into Girl Guides because I wanted to do it, and it is awesome, and I am having such a blast, and I love it. But this past fiscal year, mid 2025 to where we are in 2026, March, has been very trying, very different life things lifing on the outside. And my capacity is not what it was. And I was facing my identity as to, well, who am I if I'm not the party or like the perfect contact guider? And I've had to confront myself
Mhm.
for at least the first half of the guiding year with a new crew, women I don't know that I'm trying to like bond and be best friends with. It's another annoying trait of mine, but that's fine. And doing the inner work of grace and release. It's good
Yes.
enough. No
Yeah.
one else wants to do it. I do want to do it, but stop expecting me to do it at a 15 if all
Yeah.
I can give is a six. A six is better than a zero, and I'm
Yes.
still in alignment and
Yeah.
joy. And over
Hmm.
Christmas break, that reset has released so much now where
Hmm.
I am not resentful and I am not trying to chase my worth or prove my value. And I'm
Hmm.
just like, last year was an awesome year. Maybe this is a blip. Don't know. Don't care. Just going to do it and just make the most of it
Hmm.
with
Hmm.
where I'm at. And
Yeah.
accepting my capacity limit then ironically increases my overall
Hmm.
capacity.
It's interesting because you're touching on the idea of redefining success. And I
Yeah.
think that we take on definitions of success culturally about how it's supposed to look like on a macro scale and then micro scale. We're supposed to, and again, that's tied to the proving. We're proving that
Yeah.
we're good because we do it at a 15. But really, it just needs to get done,
Yeah.
which is done at like a 6. We're
Yeah.
cool, right? And
Yeah.
if and every season you are in, you get to have the opportunity to redefine
Yeah.
again, what does success look like in this season when I
Mhm.
have this capacity? And we bulk at limits,
Yeah.
but in fact, we get control. It gives us control. It's not saying you can't do this. It's like, okay, given the capacity and the season and what I have available, what can I do? What
Yes.
is possible for me in
Yes.
this time in a positive way. You don't have to, shrink and think you're losing. You can actually go, hey, now I can be more discerning. I can choose instead of feel guilty about all the things I can't do. I'm saying, no, I have space for this. And so therefore, here's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to love it because that's what I'm choosing.
And
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 so,
I'm planting seeds. Like this is, we're not going to stop talking now. We're stuck. I'm going to try and let you out of here pretty quick. But this is like, oh, it's such good conversation because what I'm learning, and then I'll take it into my business too with you guys, and with Candice. What I'm learning is that while this year in guiding was bumpy, I have the unit next year, and I now know what I'm going to need to run it. And I've
mhm,
laid foundation and framework for
mhm,
next year. We have to split
mhm,
the curriculum. The curriculum has to go in a rhythm so that you get all your badges over the 2 year cycle and you always have half the group graduating, right? So it's this constant flux. And it was a bit wonky donkey to get my head around it because I just flew into all of this and was learning, and I had a great primary guider before, but now I'm seeing the bigger picture. And in that, I can also accept the capacity available, knowing that it's not all entirely defined and dependent on this one moment. Like, I'm not going
Yes.
for the gold medal at the Olympics right now. I'm just living my life. And to take it into the business side of things with my coaching business, last year was a big year and a lot of really cool things happened. And they've planted seeds for this year. And this year is going to be a really cool year too. And right now, I'm in the middle of a massive new kind of identity shift, elevation, and message clarity. And like my mission is on fire. The marketing message, everything is aligning. And I'm going on vacation to see the in-laws, and I'm like fighting myself because I don't want to spend time on the computer. I need a proper break. Work is busy and it's pushing me there. The business is growing and it's pushing me there. There's all these, and I'm like fighting with myself, just take a break. But what's happening is I'm growing into my long-term capacity,
Mm-hmm.
my
Mm-hmm.
long-term
Mm-hmm.
success,
Mm-hmm.
that these things are happening over time. My
Yes.
entire life till my death date is not happening today.
No,
But today
no.
contributes
Mm-hmm.
to the end game,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And that shift, like you can hear my voice change and drop in. And that, Candice, is really what a bit of the angst that I was feeling before we hit record. Well, a free day before vacation. Da, 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 da. Dude, chill,
Yeah.
chill,
And to give
chill.
yourself permission to just
Yeah,
chill, because we don't. And there is that's probably a whole other conversation
yeah,
around, the push to being productive and
yes,
the push to, or the
yes,
push against resting as being quote
yes,
unquote bad.
yeah.
But I'll get off that high horse. But what you're pointing out here is really something beautiful, which is stepping back for the big picture,
Yeah.
right? I think it's very easy, and I've been feeling this lately too, because as we were talking before, I've had a lot of, my momentum is really
Mhm.
picking up after a season of retraction. And it's a great problem to have.
Yes.
And you describing where you were between your job and your business, it's like it reminds me of where I was when I had a job and a business at the same time too. And it's a good problem to have, but it can also get you into that sort of seeing you can't see the forest for the trees. It's like you're all
Yeah.
it is all the things you have to
Yeah.
do. And so one of the activities that I do with myself and do with clients is to kind of I call it coming back to basics. It's like
Yeah.
take the step back
Mhm.
and go, okay, what is it we're actually doing? And what are my priorities right now?
Yeah.
But it's so important to take that step back and take a big breath and ground and go, okay, let's pause for a hot minute
Yeah.
and look out at the vista and
Yeah.
get our bearings and just calm down for a minute and then choose where you want to go next. What is the next step? Not the next 40 steps, just one, you know?
Not the next
And
372,000.
yeah, I use like right now, like I use a lot of analogies. You've probably heard a lot in this talk, but one of the sort of big metaphors that I use is this idea of hiking. And we were talking, or you mentioned earlier about how we want things to be destinations. They're not.
Right. Yeah.
It's a journey.
Yeah.
And so I use this analogy of hiking, right? When you're on a hike and it's a new hike, you might have a map or not, or the one that's, at the trailhead
Right.
that you
Backwards.
might think to take a picture of. But if you're me, you probably don't because you're like, oh, I know where I am. And then you start. And, the terrain might be okay to start with. And then you
Mhm.
get a little bit, then it starts to go uphill and you're climbing
Mhm.
over things. And then you hit a mud patch. And eventually you kind of come up through the trees and you're thinking like, oh my gosh, where are we even? But at that moment, you pause, you take a drink of water, you look out at the view, you're like, wow, that was really nice.
Mhm.
But you also have that moment where you go, you know what? I think I'm good. I might turn back.
Yeah.
Or I might go forward.
Yeah.
Or I might just sit here
Yeah.
for 15 minutes and have some lunch and decide then. But it's a practice. You're going to
Mhm.
go. And then next time you might go on a different hike, or you might finish that hike, or you're going to go to the next mountain. But it's never I'd love to tell you it's done, but it's not done. You just get
Yeah.
better at navigating it. You get better at not making things a crisis. Like I can't tell
Mhm.
you how many times when I in the early 2020s where I was like, ah, I don't
Mhm.
understand. And
Mhm.
I've since recognized when I'm in the in-between space where I
Yes.
knew something and then I jumped into something else. Now I know nothing and I
Yeah.
think I'm useless and
Yeah.
whatever. And I go, oh, I'm in the liminal zone again.
Yeah.
Yay. And I don't love it, but I
Right.
used to really hate it. Then I could
Right.
recognize it and hate it. And now I'm like, oh, cool.
Okay.
I know how this is going to go now
Yeah.
because I've been there enough times for a
Yeah.
variety of different things.
Yeah.
And it just means that it's going to be a little murky for a little while, and I'm going to have to find some information, and I'm probably going to
Mhm.
have to try some things and fail at them, which I
Mhm.
hate doing, but
Mhm.
it's a thing. And eventually it will pass because it
Yeah.
always does, right?
Yeah.
And so, that's the part that a lot of like the work that I do with the women is learning how to do that because these women, I have a very strong belief, and your intro makes me think you're probably on the same path, is that I believe that the change that we want to see in this world will be led by and manifested by women.
Yeah.
There are women in your audience, in my world, out there in the world, who are bringing change on a small and a medium and a big scale to life, and they might have doubts and fears and things, and that's why I want to be the person or one of the people that helps them build that self-trust and helps them bring that momentum because I know the world needs them and they're going to float those boats and we're all going to rise.
That's it.
And um, we are so much more powerful and creative and amazing than we give ourselves credit for, especially collectively.
Yeah.
When you were talking about the
Yeah.
sisterhood before. And I know that I'm not where I am without the women in my life.
Yeah.
And, I realized the other day I have a lot of women in my life. I need to maybe balance it out with some men here and there,
Uh,
but for that different energy. But
yeah.
I am so grateful for the women who came before me,
Mhm.
who walk beside me, who I
Mhm.
look up to.
That's it.
Um, and I'm so excited. Even if the world seems like a crazy place,
Mhm.
there is hope in every corner. Like
Always.
it's so inspiring.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Beautiful. I mean, gosh, we covered so much ground. I'm
I hope
like,
your listeners
I'm
held on.
listening. I'm present. There's no quota. Sometimes they're just however long they are. I'm listening and I'm present in the moment, but I'm also like, what else can I do with Candice? Hang out more and talk more and like teach and coach and all these things. And that,
Exactly.
it's my generator energy, right? Like
Yeah.
Chat GPT is highly anxietal for me because I'm as bad as it is. Like, let's go. Okay. And it's become a running joke where I outgenerate myself. So, but I'm learning that now. And now
Mhm.
awareness. Oh, okay. And navigating, learning to self-navigate
Yeah.
yourself more and more over time. So yeah, I mean, you guys, like, if this episode didn't speak to you, listen to it again or reach out to Candice or and we'll help you unpack some of it because this, I really try hard not to talk in tangible existential ways. I really want it to be concrete examples in the day to day while we're reaching for something bigger and for it to make sense. And that's why I spent a bit of time using the Girl Guide example and really appreciate the pack example, because we are women of many roles, but we are this deeper, greater, holistic woman who has a calling and has a vision that is holding her in order to see it through. Wildlife is trying to pull us into a
Mhm.
million different directions,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
anchoring back into our true source self,
Mhm.
soul self, whatever, self
Mhm.
image, to choose where to go and how, while giving ourselves grace and not expecting. And I'm on a ironically, I like the wordplay of this, on a menopause rampage. Not rampagey. I'm just very passionate about the releasing of expectation through life seasons. Because the current book I just got, I'll plug for it, is What Fresh Hell Is This? I'm metabolic. I can't wait to read it. It's funny enough, just the cover. But this expectation, like you were saying, of performance in a system that's not built for life's fluidity and feminine energy,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
It's not built for women. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
yeah,
And I think that one of the things that I'd like your listeners to sit with or
yeah,
remember
yeah,
or consider
yeah,
is that like depending on where they are in life, I hit the caring for aging parents part early.
yeah,
But I know a lot of people are hitting it a little bit later or in there. And so you've got the kids and the parents and the whole thing. But I think that it it doesn't necessarily have to be either or, right? I
yeah,
think that you can when you life is full and your capacity may be stretched, you may have to make some choices, but that doesn't mean that the choice is to not do the thing that calls to your heart.
yeah,
It just means that what that looks like in that season
yeah.
might be different
Mhm.
than, you want to maybe go full bore and you
Yeah,
can only do one little step at a time.
yeah,
But that's okay because
yes,
as you said earlier, six is better than zero.
yes,
Some is better than none. And
yes,
if doing that little thing towards your heart song thing
yeah, yeah,
gives you some fulfillment, refills your cup, replenishes you, then you will build capacity, but you will also have more capacity for the caring work because you are not ignoring yourself. And so I think that it doesn't have to be to the detriment of yourself, right? Like it just might look different than what you think or maybe even what you want it to, but that's okay too,
yeah.
right? Because I mean, I look back and even just telling this story and I look back and I'm tired of my own life. But in it,
Mhm.
it's a different experience. But I did all those things
Yeah,
and I can tell the story of it now on the other side. But in the moment,
yeah,
I was doing those math and that for me at the time, I knew that I needed to keep going even a little bit
that's it.
because that's what filled me up.
Yeah,
And, that mattered if I wanted to keep showing up.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Beautiful. Well, let's end it with that. When we're going to share where you can follow Candice. And like,
mhm.
honestly, I mean, I know for me, I'm going to assume for you, open door to
Yep.
come in and deepen the conversation and, see what it spoke to in you and work on embodying it. That's the whole point of this. Like the podcast introduces you to other coaches, introduces you to a deeper level of me, and then you have to move in order
Yeah.
to shift it in yourself. And we're all here to help you do that,
Hmm.
in service and in our great big global legacy world takeover mission as well.
Yep. I'm here for it. Let's take it over.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks. Like, wow, that was just so juicy. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
thank you for having me. It was fantastic.
Well, how juicy and delicious and relatable was that? I am just so enamored with the depth of that conversation and the ground we covered, and honest to goodness, again, if it spoke to you or if there's something you want to unpack deeper, reach out to me, reach out to Candice, and let us know that you listened to this episode and you want to integrate a bit further. I'm happy to meet with you on Zoom or on Facebook chat. Candice, book a discovery call with her, whatever you need from us. We're here to help you continue to become the woman that you've been looking for, the woman that you're waiting for is you. She's already there. So, you guys, I'm heading off on vacation. I have a couple of things in the works because I'm making t-shirts to wear on my travels to South Africa next month. And so, one of those is going to be a new freebie opt in, a series of 4 videos on YouTube, on an unlisted YouTube channel, The 4 Pillars for a Powerful Life. And the other is going to be the new updated fresh landing page for the Everyday Woman Awakening. And so stay tuned. I'll update links on all the tech places as I have them. I have placeholders, but the content's not there yet. And come on the journey with me. This is the invitation. The freebie for 4 pillars is the foundation of my coaching framework. And so, yeah, just message me, hey, Mia, I want that unlisted channel. When's it going to be ready? And I can keep track of you and send it out to you, or, reach back in like 2 or 3 weeks' time. It's end of March. I want to have all this done, obviously, before I go to Africa. So I'm going to have QR codes on the t-shirts. And then the Everyday Woman Awakening is my coaching program. It's 6 weeks to reconnect to yourself in the day to day while you're reaching for something bigger. This has just landed at present time of the bridge between what I've been trying to say so much. And it feels really rich. It feels like, this is it. I'm here. I've arrived. I've unlocked another level. And so the program runs every other month on Wednesday mornings or Friday mornings. It's $397 for 6 weeks. And I'm going to have this new landing page put together for that really soon again. And so if you want to live the way that you're Candice and I living, this is the program that's going to awaken that in you and give you a framework to operate from, to like organize the kind of woman that you're being in order to do the things that you want to do and have the life you want to have right where you are now, not as a destination, but as a daily way of life. It's how I'm living, and it is absolutely phenomenal, powerful. I'll stick with powerful, phenomenal. Shout out to Paula Toby, one of my business partners. But yeah, so reach back in, stay tuned. I'm building it as I go. I'm not going to pretend like I have everything all buttoned up and fancy. I'm just going to share it with you raw, real, and honest from where I'm standing, and know that that will resonate. This is the real deal. It's authentic. Like, even take a look at my background, right? And me, I'm not all coiffed and polished and perfect, but I am very certain of who I am and what I'm here to do. And I'm going to help you anchor into that with yourself too, right where you are, while we build something bigger. So I love you so, so much. Thank you for joining me for another amazing episode. We'll see you in the next one. And may God bless you and bring you healing and prosperity and joy and peace as you go about your day-to-day life. See you next time.